So I made a video, my last video, I talked about rules that are not meant to be broken when it comes to thinking better and the things we talk about on these videos. And as part of that, I referenced a rule where if you are dealing with a situation, right, let's use a hypothetical. Let's say you get into an argument with your wife every time you guys talk about your financial situation and money issues. If you're in a situation where that happens and that always triggers you and you get angry and you lose your temper and you say things you wish you didn't say, and an hour or a day later you look back on it and you say, oh man, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't lose my temper. I wish I could handle myself better in that situation. The rule that I spoke about last night was meant to say it's possible that as you try and address that, right, as you try and look at the logic in the moment where you're losing your temper, it's possible that you can't fix it. It's just you'll always respond that way in that moment. Therefore, the best thing you can do is have a rule which says, I'm not going to allow that to happen. If that topic comes up, I'm going to leave the room, or I'm just not going to speak on it. I'm not going to get into that conversation with my wife, right? I'm going to put that rule in place so that I can act the right way. I can do what I really want to do. And almost instantly after I made that video, I started to question it. And I said, how does that fit into this whole concept of logic and that we always act in accordance with the way that we want to act? Or, our minds is always doing some calculation, some cost-benefit analysis for how we act or what we say or what we believe. And it always makes sense, right? The math might be basic. We might not be doing advanced enough math, but in that moment, it makes sense. And what this rule is kind of saying is, well, no, it's not right. You're not handling it right. So you need a rule to address it. Versus what we would normally say, which is, well, you got to get in the mud. You got to understand, why you're acting that way, and then the next level why, and the next level why, until you get to perhaps some inconvenient truth that tells you why you're doing that, and you fix it, right? Assuming you want to, you address it and you fix it, and that's the right approach to it. But again, this rule concept said there's situations where that may not work. And that's just what it is. And you have to accept that. You have to identify it, accept it, and then act accordingly and remove yourself from the situation. The problem I have with that, again, is that it's counter to the logical principle, right? If you break it down and you say, what are you really doing in that situation? You are acting a certain way in the moment when you get triggered. And you're losing your temper and you're yelling at your wife and you're saying whatever you're saying, right? And the belief is that is a mistake. That is bad math. You're not doing your math effectively and you're coming to some outcome that says, yeah, yell at her, tell her these things. But the belief is that's wrong. The math is off there. So you recognize that an hour, a day later, and you look at it and you say, my math's off. I need to fix it. So you put in a plug almost. You stick in this plug to the equation and you say, well, I want the answer to come out to, I don't fight with my wife about this because that's the wrong thing for me to be doing. So you put this plug in, right? You put this rule in place, which says, well, that will ensure me that I get to the answer that I want to get to. That makes sure that I do that. Now, what could be going wrong there, I think where I take issue with it is it ignores the possibility, or in many cases, the likelihood that the way you're acting in that moment when you and your wife are talking about your financial situation, that is the truth. That is actually what you want. You are angry about something, right? Maybe the way she spends money or that she makes more money than you, whatever it is in this hypothetical situation. There's something that deep down in the mud, when you get to the next level Y and the next level Y, you actually truly believe and feel is a problem. And in that moment, you're being truthful and you're saying it. Now, a day later, you look back and you wish it wasn't true. You wish you could handle it and view it differently, but you can't. So by putting that plug in, by putting the rule in, you in effect are acting illogically. You're going against what it truly is. And it starts to remind me of another topic we've talked about recently, which is kind of this concept of functional faith, right? You can think of it through religion. You can think of it through a lot of different things. It's when you wish you could be a different type of person. I wish I was a better person. I wish I was more faithful to my wife. I wish I was nicer to people. I wish I, did more charity, whatever it is, right? So you begin to adopt, for some people, you begin to adopt religion or some other ideology that almost becomes a rule. It becomes a plug into the equation that says, well, that's just what I do. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about what I really want. I just follow that. And that will get me to the answer that I want and the outcome that I want. It's very similar to that. It's force fitting, right? It's plugging into the equation to force out an answer that you think you want, but that's not natural, right? That goes against the logical principles that I believe, which is that we act in accordance with our, mental calculations, and we do what we want to do. And in this case, right, in the hypothetical where you're fighting with your wife, if you keep running into this wall where no matter what I do, I try and reflect on it, I try and think about it, I try and be better, I try and, all the things so that I stop yelling and I stop fighting. Well, maybe you're not deep enough in there and acknowledging the inconvenient truth is that that's the problem. And you need to vent, you need to let it out. So although it may seem effective to put that rule in place, right, where you say, I'm just going to remove myself from the situation, there is some effectiveness possibly in that. You may, if your objective is to not fight with your wife, you may not fight with your wife, but you're almost doing it for the wrong reasons. It's a hack or a shortcut or a cheat, if you will, to it. And I get the appeal of it, right? And I can't say for certain that maybe you can't do that forever and just keep riding that hack right on through and you won't fight with your wife anymore. But my sense is the truth is still down there in the mud and it's still bothering you. It's still going to come out in some way. So I think perhaps I misspoke last night, and thinking back on it, a rule like that is a mistake. It's tempting. I see why people look for it. I see why in lots of different, self-help books and other things, there's these types of hacks and there's these mental models they try and put in place to say, yeah, just do it this way and you'll fix it. But I believe that you have to get to the root issue. If you really want to solve the problem in the long term in a sustainable way, you have to identify and address the actual root issue. You can't use a rule, you can't use a plug to cover that up.